when it comes out of the factory. That's a test. It's done by a VW employee. Now, one of the questions is should that be independent? Should there be a safety check done there? And in which case, an independent checker or tester, which is the same as an independent auditor, can give an independent view, which hopefully adds validity to that test because they've got no vested interest. Yes. And as you say, the regulation is obviously driving that too. So, you do see things like, new laws and regulations coming in to protect consumers, both from a health and safety point of view, but from other perspectives as well. So, consumers are becoming more conscious of other issues in their lives. So the whole sort of environmental issue, the whole sort of sustainability issue, the whole sort of, having, corporations who've got, a corporate social charter. How do you actually assess that those companies are doing what they say they're doing? So if you take a brand, I guess you're probably familiar with Body Shop, for example, the Anita Roddick company. Yes. Right. They've always had this thing since Anita Roddick set it up that they don't test on animals, that the products won't ever be bad for your skin. Well, how do you know that? And, as at a basic level, the government would force that company to do health and safety checks on the creams and lotions and potions that you buy to make sure, you don't burn your skin or there's no acid in it or something crazy like that. But then consumers, as they become more aware over the last sort of 20 or 30 years, are saying, well, okay, prove to me you don't test it on animals. Prove to me that none of your suppliers don't use child labor. That you're not involved in countries where there is slavery. So that, all of the product is ethically sourced and that the people who are growing the, whatever beans or seeds that make the liquid that go into the creams that we sell in Body Shop, how do we know that the growers in Africa aren't exploited and they get a fair price for the seeds that they're growing to make these lotions and potions? So consumers have consumer activism and consumer awareness has driven companies to use the TIC companies more and more in order that they can validate that these claims and statements they make are genuinely true. So you do see TIC companies looking at things that are now board issues. So if you've got a corporate social responsibility charter, how do you audit that? And that's a natural place for a TIC company to come in and say, okay, we can check your supply chain. We can check that you're not using child labor. We can check that you're not using, factories in countries where, there's slavery and that kind of thing.
And what's your view on the impact of technology on the sector?
Right. So this was the other growth sector I was going to talk to you about. So the first one is consumer products, driven by the rise in consumer volume and the wealth. The second one is technology. So there's 2 or 3 areas which are of particular interest to the TIC companies. The first one is the sort of whole area of trade going on over the internet. So how do you ensure that you're dealing with somebody who is trusted? How do you ensure that transactions can take place in a trusted way? How do you ensure that you're not being phished or hacked? How do you ensure that your IT systems are safe? How do you ensure that you're not breaking the global data protection rules, that the data that you say you keep on me is what you're keeping, that if I ask you to delete it, you have actually deleted it? So there's a whole bunch of issues there, all the sorts of issues around, viruses and malicious things that go on the internet. How do we know your entire IT system is safe? So there's lots and lots of growth around that. The other area of growth that the TIC companies are looking at is the whole area of IoT. So the Internet of Things. They're looking at it from 2 perspectives. What opportunities is it for them in terms of testing stuff, to make sure that things are safe, that transmissions of data from even something as simple as a light bulb, maybe you start to pay for your electricity not by the kilowatt, but by the amount of light time that the bulb is actually on. Somebody supplies light to you as a service. How do you know that, the light bulb testing is correct? So there's lots of things like Zigbee, which is a little standard